Oh, you know it's fall. You know fantasy football is in the air when we are going not one, but two episodes this week of We Talk Fantasy. And who knows? Maybe the future will continue to have this happen. Who knows? If the fall's this type of packed, you just might sporadically see us popping up. So, Apple, Spotify, audio audience, make sure you have those automatic downloads set to your phone so We Talk Fantasy can come to you. Same for our YouTube side, top right corner, that little bell right there. Anytime We Talk Fantasy hits, you can get it on your phone whenever those episodes might be dropping. Before we get into this Monday, Tuesday episode, recapping week 3 and going into week 4, sort of, we got to tell you about our friends who make this show possible, like our friends over at Mohawk Honda. Scott Moynihan is back, 30-plus years of experience in the car industry, selling, making it easy for you to find your new ride. Stop in Glenville, New York, and find a new vehicle. 2023s are on the way. The 2022s are at a price you might not be able to believe. Plus, they want to buy your vehicle. Think about that. You trade in your vehicle, you get money in your pocket, and all of a sudden you can buy a brand new car. That can happen right now at Mohawk Honda. So awesome getting to see everybody this past week. Going to see him again on October 27th. And who knows, maybe you listening right now might meet him before we get to see him again. Mohawk Honda, Glenville, New York. Check them out on social media. Always doing great things and showing off their selection of vehicles. Mohawk Honda, where they always go out of their way to please you. All right, guys, let's get into it. Week 3, an interesting week in fantasy. We'd like to recap the biggest fantasy storylines that have happened. Chet, I will start with you. Thinking back at this week 3, what stood out to you the most?
What stood out to me the most? Honestly, this week it would probably be flex players. It was the week of fringe players, or the week that everyone despises, when your bench pops off and your starters suck. I feel like every fantasy manager this week had to have had at least someone on their bench go off for a couple touchdowns, and you were stuck with an abysmal DJ Moore outing, or the classic quiet Tyreek game after popping off the week before. So yeah, it was one of those weeks where you maybe felt really good about your team coming in, and the guys that were off to great starts to the season kind of faded away. And it was just a ridiculous. I mean, I sent you guys that tweet that showed the top PPR wide receivers and some of the bottom guys. And like, this might go down. We don't have, I'll make sure I send this note to our research department at We Talk Fantasy. But this might be the most obscure top 5 PPR receivers list in the history of fantasy football. Like, we've had obscure weeks before. It happens. A guy gets 2 bomb touchdowns and just comes out of nowhere. That happens. But for number 1 to be Devontae Smith, who had been really quiet the first 2 weeks. Number 2, leading PPR receiver, Mac Hollins.
Who?
We totally knew that.
Hollins, who I thought he was a tight end for the Dolphins. Wasn't he a tight end last year? Like,
maybe.
Mac Hollins, number 2. The rookie Chris Olave at 3 still has yet to score a touchdown in his career. Go figure that one out. Again, this is PPR scoring. 4, Kyle's God, the COD mate, Isaiah McKenzie.
Face of the franchise.
And then number 5, a player that majority of fantasy probably cut last week, Devontae Parker. The ghost of Devontae Parker finally shows up in New England. What a bizarre, absolutely bizarre top 5. So yeah, it was one of those weeks where in fantasy and in real football, you questioned your knowledge. Take a breather. It's okay. These weeks happen. Hopefully we'll return to normalcy next week. And don't start Mac Hollins again. Like, just don't do it. Like, don't fall for that.
You're not going to impress us if you do.
That's your mirage. That's your Monday mirage. His name is Mac Hollins.
Yep.
Ray, what stood out to you after week 3?
If your quarterback is not named Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, or Josh Allen, you're in trouble. Now, that's not meaning you put the panic button if you have somebody like Patrick Mahomes or Kyler Murray or even Justin Herbert. You don't panic. However, you're questioning your quarterback position. There were 4, count them, 4 quarterbacks that scored over 20 points. Derek Carr was at 19.8. 4 was Herbert. Then it went Hurts, Allen, Lamar. Outside of that, everybody was just down. And you're looking at it and you're going, what is going on with my quarterback position? I reached in some of like the top 3-4 rounds to get a guy like Herbert, to get a guy like Patrick Mahomes. And if you didn't, and if you could have gotten lucky and gotten Hurts or Jalen Hurts or Joe Burrow in like the 7th, 8th round, but yet the only one, though, there's 2 quarterbacks that are panning out in those top 4 quarterbacks, and that's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson right now. It's insane, and it kind of goes back to Chet's point with the wide receivers. There are so many unknowns this year in terms of fantasy football. Guys, we know nothing. We know absolutely nothing when it comes to what player is going to pop off. You have those traditional wide receivers. You're getting A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek even had a bad game this week. But there are those wide receivers that are going to do it. But all those number 2 wide receivers that people are like, that's my wide receiver 2, and I'm locked in, a Gabe Davis, a Tyler Lockett, a T. Higgins, that are putting up mediocre numbers. And those number 3 and number 4 wide receivers are popping off. Isaiah McKenzie, Tyler Boyd. Those are the guys that are popping off. And then you go farther even down the list, and then you see James Robinson is throwing up consistent, almost 20-point games. Like, these late round draft picks, if you hit and you got those guys, you're like, I'm going to get this guy in the 7th, 8th round, and he's going to be my running back flex. Well, guess what? James Robinson just became your RB1 because Dalvin Cook and Tyler Eckler are struggling right now. So then you go to the wide receiver position. If you don't have one of those top wide receivers, and you could even grab Justin Jefferson at 2. I was so high on Justin Jefferson, I would have taken him at number 1. He even had a bad week. So it is insane how this season has gone, but the quarterback position to me has blown my mind this so far this year. And I want to credit a lot of it to how defenses and cornerbacks and safeties have been playing some of these quarterbacks. You're getting more film. Linebackers and safeties are getting faster, and we're seeing more and more corners start to get to that top tier level. Like Patrick Surtain has had an amazing year so far this year, and a lot of people consider him probably like a top 10 cornerback. Well, that guy's playing like the best cornerback in the league right now. So that's probably affecting some of these quarterbacks. But man, is it crazy to see some of these quarterbacks that you look at struggle. And then if you don't have one of those 3 guys, Lamar, Allen, or Hurts, you're like, am I going to have to stream a quarterback based on matchup because the inconsistencies? I don't know. It's definitely interesting though.
Kyle, are you changing your stance at all about the Lamar payday?
See,
because he's kind of playing like an MVP.
Yup. My biggest problem right now is I know he's had a couple good games from what he's done on his legs. I still question his arm. Yup. You're not gonna change my mind on it. I don't know if you watched that whole Ravens game. There were some bad passes.
I did not. I'm a Sunday ticket guy. I'm at the mercy of Scott Hansen. But 218 yards. Pretty well, like you just said. He's one of the best guys right now with a position that's struggling elsewhere. So if the Ravens let him walk, that fan base will riot.
Well, as they should. They 100% should. Like, don't get me wrong. If Lamar can continue to put up 100-yard rushing games, yeah, he's going to get paid. But you're not going to get paid throwing up two of your 3 games going under 220 passing yards.
220 ain't bad, bro. That ain't bad.
Well, when you're putting up 100 yards on the ground, yeah.
True.
You know what I love about...
Go ahead, guys.
I was going to say, you know what I love about Kyle being a Bills fan is that, and I don't think you're even doing it intentionally, because I've heard this conversation from Bills fans, and Chet, he might have been one of your interns. Maybe he wasn't. A guy named Bobby Trossett, who's out in Baltimore, who's one of my interns, who's doing stuff out there for Blue Wire Pods. I feel like whether Bills fans and Ravens fans know they're doing it, there is a little bit of a rivalry between Lamar and Josh. Like, I think if we had this conversation in Maryland, people would be trashing Josh Allen and saying, oh, he got hurt, his numbers weren't good, he couldn't beat Miami. And Bills fans look at Lamar and say, well, his numbers passing aren't that great, and Baltimore hasn't been. There is something fun. I think it's fun too, like, because it goes back to their draft day. Like, that class, it's those 2 left who are head and shoulders above everybody else, and their styles are different, but they're kind of similar, and their MVP stuff is kind of. I love it. I think there's something really good to that. And the other part I just always enjoyed about this podcast, especially fantasy football talk, there used to be a show on ESPN called Numbers Never Lie. And sometimes we always dive into what these numbers really mean. But after the week's finished, the number is what it is. Like, you can't change it. And you guys have seen this happen. If you've worked on a play-by-play broadcast with me, I'm sure it drives people nuts where I don't have the long, huge notes. I have my own style of taking notes that works for me because I've done it for so long. The second week in a row, I'm showing my notes here on the visual side. If you can see the top left corner, right? I wrote down quarterback rankings. Stafford, Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and Tom Brady.
Yeah.
24 for Stafford, 25 for Rodgers, 26 for Brady, 27 for Matt Ryan, and 22 for Russell Wilson. Not sure why I did it out of order, but that's how my notes were. It goes to Kyle's point. If you're a quarterback, you got old all of a sudden. Like, all those guys are 10 to 15 to 20 years in the league, and they're all not good. Like, they've been good. They're Hall of Famers. They're great. Ryan might be on the fringe, and we'll see how Wilson ends up. Great quarterbacks. But, oh, my God, they all got bad fast. Like, that five I just listed one more time. Brady, Rodgers, Wilson, Ryan, and thank you, Stafford. I don't know if they're all going to get better. Because Wilson on Sunday night, Kyle, you and I were texting during the game. He was brutal. Like, he had one good drive. Brady looks like a statue in the pocket. Aaron Rodgers hates his teammates. Matthew Stafford might be a little bit more hurt than we realize. And Matt Ryan looks like a Eli Manning when he's bouncing the ball. They're all bad. And it's great players, always have been consistent in fantasy. They're all toast. Like, I know we're going to get to a sit, start, and cut. Spoiler alert. Done with all of them. If you're old, you're old. And we just found out about those quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I think this is going to move the needle. And I think we discussed this in the last episode of the podcast. I think this is going to move the needle a little bit. And I've usually, and it's funny, I really went against my own strategy this year. And the funny part is, it didn't make a lot of sense of why I did it, because I thought this was an extremely deep fantasy quarterback year. Because if you missed the boat on those top 4 or 5 guys, there was 6, 7, 8 guys late double-digit rounds that you felt really good about. Those guys that you listed, guys, are not like, most of them are Hall of Famers. They're also Hall of Fame fantasy players, guys that you can just rely on. And so the teams that did that and, settled for some of those older guys, I guarantee most of them are going to start streaming. Like, you have to start streaming quarterbacks. And some of those guys that are in the middle of your rankings right now for points this season, they're not going to be consistent. Like, are you ever going to feel good going into a week with Trevor Lawrence?
No.
Like, he has already proved. He's looked good his sophomore year. He's looked good. But we know what he's capable of. And that's like a sub 5-point performance. Like, he has that ability to throw 3 picks and just get, nothing for you. So yeah, those guys, you're going to have to get either a creative trade going on or just do a quarterback dance every Sunday. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Trevor Lawrence, please don't screw me over. I don't know how that song's going to go, but
keep it going.
Guys, you're just not going to feel, you're never going to have a settled stomach at 12:59 on Sundays. That's how the rest of your year is going to go. And I apologize.
You gave me a good answer right there. A little segue. Settled stomach. And it brings us to the WTF moment of the week for the fantasy world, the We Talk Fantasy Moment. By the way, you want to have some of those moments. 3 New York teams are in the 1 o'clock window in week 4. Come join us at the Hideaway, Saratoga Lake Golf Club. That's where we'll be broadcasting live 11:30 to 1. All good things happening this Sunday. Who wants to go first here on WTF? Ray, Chet, if you guys want to go first, you can. I have mine ready to jump onto the screen if you guys are ready.
Oh, I think we got to let you go after that.
All right, good. I can't wait. I need Arizona and Los Angeles. I've been sitting on this for 24 hours. What the hell happened in this whole game? I was so convinced that the Rams and Cardinals were going over. You got Kingsbury. You got McVay. Our picks from last week, I nailed it. I nailed Khalil Herbert. Fantastic. Russell Gage has a huge touchdown. 2 big plays that could have won you some cash. And Darrell Henderson, who is the worst interview in the history of Levac and Goz. He is terrible. The audio, luckily, I think, has been deleted. This is your moment. You get 4 carries. 4? How? Like, how did the Ram? Okay, so I thought that would be enough. AJ Green got hurt. Okay, maybe you're done. Maybe it's a wrap. And then the running back situation in Arizona. So James Conner's hurt. So you've got Eno Benjamin, who if he walked into this podcast right now, I wouldn't know who he is. And Darrell Williams, who has been like a fun factoid from 2021 for stats. I swear to God, I got so close in our Dynasty League of benching Cordero Patterson for Darrell Williams. I almost did it because I was so convinced he was going to have a big game. I didn't. Thank God. I almost did. That's how close I got. So the whole WTF moment of the week for me is so much invested, so much potential in LA versus Arizona, and just bombs across everywhere. Bomb, 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 bomb. Terrible. Awful. Murray stunk. Stafford stunk. Bombs across the board for me for that game.
And that, folks, is why I do not gamble, because I would not handle that very
gambling and fantasy.
Hello.
That's right. Like, and not just the gambling side of it too, like the fantasy side. Like you're excited. Like this is the over fantasy points, every double bombs.
And how did Cam Akers look in that game?
He actually
I saw he had a pretty good stat line. Yeah, he bounced back a little bit.
He looks like the guy that's ready to roll people over, making good cuts. He looked quick. I was pretty impressed by Cam Akers. I was like, this guy got, I think, the message from McVay, but knowing next week he'll come up and put up 4 yards on 10 carries.
Cam Akers is what Clyde Edwards-Helaire needs to be. Here's a hole, run into the hole. That's it. Yep. Gets the hole.
Did you see
Edwards-Helaire?
Oh my God. You see the screenshot of Patrick Mahomes pointing at the hole,
mm-hmm.
and Edwards-Helaire went the wrong way. Like he's like, it's right there. Go left. Hang up left. He didn't do it.
Can I transition into my WTF moment?
Yes.
That's perfect.
Absolutely.
Who the hell is Patrick throwing to? Let me read off who has touchdowns for the Kansas City Chiefs. Travis Kelce with 2.
Who's that?
Yep. These ones you guys are going to know. Clyde Edwards-Helaire with 2, right? Okay, here we go. Mecole Hardman. You probably know a little bit of Mecole, but again, he has a whopping 7 catches on the year. Oh no, my battery's dying. That's not great. All right, so I'm gonna go through this real quick. Justin Watson with 1. Jerick McKinnon. Okay, cool. On 5 catches. And then Jody Fortson. Where is
his last name is Foreskin?
Fortson, like Fortnite.
Okay.
The actress from Alien, Jodie Foster?
My moment is like I was watching some of that Chiefs game because I was baffled that they lost to the Colts. Like over the top baffled. And when they were rolling out some of these lineups, and I was like, who are some of these guys? I like, where is Juju? Where is Martez Valdez-Scantling? And then I saw Hardman. And I remember today, I was like, probably my guy that I'm going to be most interested in is Hardman. Nope. He had 1 catch last week. Patrick Mahomes, I think the value of his wide weapons has gone incredibly low. And it just hit me this week with that loss, watching some of the routes develop, watching how Mahomes is still creating these crazy throws, but nobody can get open. If your name's not Kelce, you're not open. And that's where I look at what Travis Kelce's going to do. I think he's primed for probably the best tight end year of all time because of how many targets he's going to get, how many touchdowns he's going to get. He's already got 24 targets, 17 receptions, looking great from a receptions per target rate for 230 yards, and we're 3 games in the season. And I think Patrick has played pretty bad. I think we can all agree Patrick has not been prime Pat. But I'm shocked at what this offense has looked like, all because 1 guy left. Technically 2 if you count Sammy Hammy.
No, he doesn't count.
No, but it just that was the moment for me.
It does further that point. Okay, so Tyreek Hill leaves that offense and they're sputtering and joins Miami, and the Dolphins are 3-0. Like the effect of Tyreek Hill, we talk about a lot where it can be a roller coaster week to week in points. Because he's a guy that can go off for 10 catches, 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Or this past week against the Bills, when he had like 2 catches for 30 yards, whatever it was. Even when that happens, he draws so much freaking attention from any defense. Like, defensive coordinators have nightmares the week they have to face Tyreek Hill because you can't. He's a game-changing player that we see once in a generation. Like, that is what Tyreek Hill is.
And Miami has 2 of them.
Yeah, Jalen Waddle equally as explosive. Hopefully those Chiefs could figure it out. Obviously, you trust in Andy Reid and his ability, but it's almost like they just get too cute, and I think they could get away with it when they were so talented and deep. But now it's just like, dude, rely on the guys that you know can get you there.
Well, you also saw the blow.
The Bieniemy thing, is that what you're about to say? Yeah.
All right, so my WTF moment of the week, we kind of already touched on one of the players involved on this team. Maybe you guys saw this stat. Denver punted 10 times last night and still won the game. First time that's happened in 6 NFL seasons. They're a terrible 2-1 team. Yeah, and they really should be 3-0 if it wasn't for Nathaniel Hackett, who, I mean, I was proud for a Syracuse connection to become a head coach. He's terrible. It's actually embarrassing, the fact that he had to hire someone to basically hold his hand, to like help him manage the game. What? That's what you're being paid millions of dollars to do. Russell Wilson looks terrible. Let me read off the running back splits from yesterday, which granted is a game that they somehow won, but that's more because Jimmy Garoppolo's dumbass stepped on the back of the end zone line. He went full Dan Orlovsky. You never go full Dan Orlovsky. Javonte Williams had a 44% snap share. Melvin Gordon had 37%. Mike freaking Boone had 19% of the snaps at running back. What? I believe Melvin Gordon is the only running back in the NFL who's fumbled in every game this year. He's three fumbles.
No, he's got to have more than that.
Maybe 3 lost fumbles.
He fumbled 3 last night.
Did he only fumbled in every game? No, Chet's right. You're both right. Chet said he fumbled in every game, and you're right. He's fumbled more than once in those games. You're both right. Yeah.
What are you doing? Like, I know sometimes we're guilty of it where we get mad at coaches for not using our guys. You know, like, how dare thee not put DeAndre Swift at the goal line? Well, guess what? You know, he scored, Jamal Williams scores touchdowns, so you can't really knock it. Melvin Gordon's trying to lose football games for Denver, and you have a second-year back who we all believe has the potential to be a Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber player. What is going on in Denver? That's my WTF moment. Like, Russell, it's like, who do you want to pick on? Do you want to pick on Russell, who's become the cringiest player in all of sports? Let's ride. Oh, I saw a great one. Do you see the cartoon of Russell Wilson saying, let's ride? And he's on top of the Broncos defense. And he's like a cowboy, like, let's ride. It's like, yeah, you're riding the coattails of the rest of your team, you bum. And then, yeah, just the decisions in the team's way too talented. Granted, somehow miraculously they're 2-1, but 10 punts with a Hall of Fame quarter. What are we doing?
I don't see any potential there either, fantasy-wise, for those guys like Judy and Cortland Sutton. You mentioned Javonte Williams, a guy I questioned this season, but I mean, Melvin Gordon can't hold on. It's a mess. And Albert O, big Albert O, man, I have you on every.
Thank you,
Mr. Donut, Albert Donut.
I think he played a quarter of the snaps last night.
Some of these decisions are just purely unacceptable. And we were talking about this we were talking about the Bills Dolphins games where people were exhausted and cramping and getting taken out. These guys aren't just voluntarily. This is bad coaching. This is bad coaching for some of the best players. Javonte Williams should be in there at least 80% of the snaps. He is the best running back. Alberto should be on the field probably 100% of the time because he's a good blocker too. And it's across the league. You're seeing guys getting pulled for just like some of these matches. Like, what are we doing? This is just bad coaching at that point. And newsflash, everybody, it's for the crappy teams, which is the crazy part. Like, crappy decisions are being done on the crappy teams, and you got to be careful. I feel like in some of these fantasy terms, because that may happen if you're a DeAndre Swift owner who is watching Jamal Williams hawk everything inside the 20. Every touch is going to Jamal inside the 20. If DeAndre doesn't score a breakaway run, he ain't getting a touchdown, boys and girls.
It's true.
Man, a packed WTF moments of the week, man. That's a good one for week 3. Let's get into trying to figure out what was actually real from week 3, what will be real as we head into the rest of the season, and what's just a mirage and illusion. We're going a little old school with this segment coming up here, but before we get into it, we'll tell you somebody who's always real, those real moments, those real special times. It's Lily and David Fine Jewelers, Route 50, the shops of Wilton. And guess what? It's real that it's the 10th anniversary of Lily and David Fine Jewelers. Shout out to everybody, Alyssa, David, the whole crew over at Lily and David Fine Jewelers, celebrating their 10th anniversary. So many cool deals coming up in the upcoming days. Look at that, man. I'm so excited. I almost forgot what was going on. In October, we'll have more details on that coming up throughout the fall, where you can find those holiday gifts, those birthday gifts, celebrate the anniversary, or buy that engagement ring for that someone special in your life. I've done it before. You can do it now and find that ring and that piece of jewelry that fits your budget. Family owned and operated business. It's Lily and David Fine Jewelers, Route 50, the shops of Will. I stopped in there on Friday, got to talk to everybody. Rex was sleeping on me. He did not cause chaos. It was all good things, and all good things can be on the way for you. And Lily and David Fine Jewelers, Route 50, the shops of Will. When you stop in, tell them you heard about it from We Talk Fantasy and your guys from Godzilla Media. All right, guys, here we go. I'm going to give you 3 Monday Mirages. If you might be new to this, Real or Mirage, you got to pick one or the other. We're going to start off with this one here. Real or Mirage, Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor will finish as the top 2 running backs in fantasy. Now, that can be in either order. Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor will be the top 2 running backs in fantasy football at the end of the regular season. Real or Mirage?
I'm going Mirage.
Either order. Okay.
Do you have a reason why?
You want me to tell you your reason why?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it's Mirage just because by the time Watson comes back in week 11, they're going to want to see what Watson has. They're going to try to get a hold of this offense with what Watson, get him comfortable with what he has. You know, some of the wide receivers may change, but I have a feeling they're going to go to a more pass-heavy offense at that point. And by that time, you know, where are the Browns going to be? Are they going to be in playoff contention? Maybe. I mean, that division has kind of proven that it's not that great. There's susceptibility in the Ravens secondary. But at that point, I think you're thinking that that Deshaun Watson is going to come back. They're going to really throw the ball with Watson, and it's going to hinder Chubb a lot because that's going to give a lot more opportunities to Kareem Hunt.
I'm going to say Mirage. I'm going to say Mirage because the problem with both of these players is the inability to be involved in the passing game. Jonathan Taylor hasn't been known for that in his young career. Kareem Hunt is still in Cleveland. It's been a great start for Chubb, but he is a very much touchdown-dependent running back. If he doesn't find the end zone, you're looking at an 8-point day. I think even though it's been a disappointing start for running backs, I do think Saquon Barkley can knock one of those guys off the top 2 spots. I'm looking at this list right now, and I just can't believe I'm looking at James Robinson 2, Edwards-Helaire 3.
Patterson's up there, right?
0 rushing yards. Like,
Yeah.
What? Cordero Patterson 4. You're welcome, guys, for trading him to you in Dynasty. So there's not a ton of competition. It really, you're looking at Saquon. Is he going to be the one that can knock him off? And I'm going to say yes.
I'm going real.
Oh,
I'm going real with Chubb and Taylor. And I'm looking at that running back sheet you just talked about, Chet, those names, right? It's almost the theme of this podcast. The usual suspects are no longer usual. McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry. I would have taken 3 of those guys to catch him. But we've talked about Derrick Henry's inconsistency. Dalvin Cook just got hurt. And Christian McCaffrey, it's about play calling with Matt Rule. Like, it's not that hard. Give McCaffrey the football. Baker's struggling. Carolina won that game, and McCaffrey still probably needed some more carries in that one. And the mashed potatoes, I call it, that order of running backs right now. I'm looking for consistency. So I know Chubb's consistent. I know Taylor's consistent. So if I had to pick 2 consistent running backs to continue to score week in and week out, I'll take those 2. And one thing I'm going to add that Ray said, I don't know if anyone else listening had the same reaction. When he started talking about Watson, I'm like, who the hell's Watt? Oh, right, Deshaun Watson, who hasn't played in like a year and a half, on Cleveland now. Because I reacted thinking, who is he talking? Oh, right, that guy. He's still in the league. Totally almost blanked on it, just forgetting about Deshaun Watson.
I of course, the year that I wasn't very high on Chubb because of everything that was going on in Cleveland. I was so high on him last year, had him as my RB1. Now he's actually producing. Cool. Thanks, Chubb.
I'm not going to be very descriptive for this next one, but I think that a less of a description will add to more fun of an answer here. Tua, real or Mirage? Tua,
I'm already pissed. It's
Mirage.
Mirage. Move on.
Why do I think guys think it's real?
Here's why I almost did instead of the 201. I had thinking, will Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle both finish as top 10 wide receivers? Now, that could have been the better one, and I think we could still do that conversation if that's real or Mirage. But I guess I'll go first with it because I'm like, okay, so if I'm going to tell you that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are both going to finish in the top 10, and the Dolphins are 3-0, and someone's got to throw them the football, like Tua's going to finish somewhere in the top 15, and maybe 15's the answer. So as of right now, we'll go 3 for 3. I'll also say Mirage because it's been 3 games. But why I even like hesitated and audible to Omaha there at the end was I'm like, I mean, he's got 2 top 10 wide receivers. So I guess I'll toss that back to you guys. Real or Mirage, do you believe Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle could finish as 2 top 10 wide receivers?
It's always tough because obviously on a single play, only one person can catch the football. But we've already seen a game where they both scored 40 plus. So we know that that's also possible. Outside of those 2, there's not a lot of competition. You know, some of those great receiving cores do have a third guy. I'm looking at you, Tyler Boyd in Cincinnati, who had a great week this week. Who's the number 3 in Miami?
Probably Gesicki, and he's pretty bad.
And Gesicki, if you read some of the preseason analysis, you would have seen this coming. Like they don't want to use him as this big receiver because they don't need to. They want to use him more as a blocking guy. He's not going to be on the field as much. More of a red zone threat, most likely. But the explosiveness of Hill and Waddle definitely gives them the ability. So I'm going to say that is real. I think they do have the ability to finish as 2 top 10 guys.
I unfortunately have to also say it's real, and I'll kind of go on the route of their yards after catch. I mean, they are probably close to 1-2 for elite ability to go yards after catch. I mean, they can both just run away. You could be hip to hip, and as soon as Waddle or Hill catches the ball, there becomes immediate separation. And from there, you're getting 5, 6, 7 extra yards. And right now, they're both probably averaging close. Like Hill obviously took a beating this week with only 3 catches, but they're averaging 10 catches a game right now. Like right. You catch 10 passes and you gain only 5 yards after catch. And that is ungodly low for those two. It's an extra 50 yards. That's an extra 5 points from a fantasy perspective. Like that elite ability is crazy. So I'll go real. I could see it happening, but at the same time, I could also see it going way downhill because again, there are only those 2 options. And I do not believe in Tua long term. I don't think that the offensive line is going to be able to give him the help that he needs. And at some point, the offensive line is going to crumble around Tua with all the injuries and everything like that. And it's going to pay. It's going to hurt Tua in the end. And then, of course, he's got this back injury that makes him fall down.
That's right. It was a weird situation where he's tumbling, and it was mostly all concussions. Yeah,
that was 100. That was 100% a concussion. It was not a back injury. You will not change my mind.
It was a little strange how he was evaluated too. And by the way, to add one other thing to the Hill Waddle conversation for perspective, both top 5 right now. 3 and 5 in those rankings is where they sit.
Is Waddle 3?
Yes, Waddle is 3.
How crazy is it that the top 5, like Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle are all top 5 wide receivers, all in the AFC East?
That's right.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Last one here. Real or Mirage? You know I like my awards. I'm a big award voting guy. I'll leave it a little open-ended for both of you. At the end of week 4, so about a quarter of the way through a fantasy football season, catch that October 2nd weekend for week 4, a Baltimore Raven is the MVP of fantasy football through the first quarter of the season. Real or Mirage? A Baltimore Raven, and maybe you see what I'm coding here with this, is an MVP of fantasy football through 4 weeks of the season. Real or Mirage?
Ooh, baby.
Oof.
I'm going to say
I can go first. If you guys want to think about it a bit longer.
Yeah.
Real to me, because now I left it open. I got 2 of them, right? So we can go Lamar. Like you could have gotten Lamar in 5th, 6th, 7th round, depending on league size and the numbers he's putting up. If you have a stinky running back or a bad flex player, or you had a terrible defensive week, Lamar's putting up enough points right now. We're at what, 25, 30 a week? It's not even that great. Like that's how high the number.
34.7.
There you go.
34.7.
And that's not even bonus leagues. If you got over 100 yards rushing, you got some bonus points there, some monster big plays. So that's yes. Like, he can be the MVP. And Mark Andrews, like, his tight end performance, I don't even want to do the stats because I feel like we've beaten this horse dead at this point about the tight end position through the last month of he is destroying everybody. Like, Kelsey's there. Kelsey's close. He's got around like 40 plus. So like, it's Andrews and Kelsey. We all knew that from the summer. But my God, like, you can do a list probably of 9 through 18 and they may not add up to Andrews. And that's production week in and week out. So because of what that position is, you can argue Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson. So it's definitely real for me. Those are a Baltimore Raven and MVP of fantasy through 4 weeks, no matter what they do in week 4, by the way.
Before I answer the question, can we agree that Andrews has surpassed Kelsey? Because this is not 3 weeks into the season. This is the 6 prior games to end last season. Like, this is not a fluky thing. Like, Andrews, and you know how I feel about these, and we call them next level fantasy stats. His target share, we're talking mid-30s, guys. Like, it's not a good target share for tight ends. It's the best target share in the league. So yeah, it's a combination of elite usage and an amazing talent. Like, how many times have we seen him one-hand a pass? He's in the end zone. Like, it's everything you could possibly want out of a fantasy player. And he's, in my opinion, he's just the younger version right now. That's why I give him the edge. And Kelsey is, in my opinion, number 2 tight end.
Yes, and I know why you're hesitating, because earlier you said Mahomes has got to throw to somebody, right?
Well, I agree with a lot of what Chet said in terms of like health and age and everything like that. I mean, the difference between Kelsey and Andrews right now this year so far is 1 touchdown. That's the difference. Kelsey's averaging 17.4, or Kelsey's averaging 15.2. Andrews is 17.4. So it's literally the one touchdown. And again, that's not that big of a deal. I see so much from Travis Kelce. I love what he does to block. And I know Andrews is a great blocker too. I think it's so neck and neck. I think it's one of those.
I'm talking about fantasy. I'm just saying fantasy.
Oh, I don't know if I'm ready to go there yet.
Ooh,
I don't.
Okay.
And my main reason is only quarterback play. And I know Lamar literally throws the ball.
We do remember that Andrews was tight end 1 last year.
Yep.
Okay.
But didn't Kelsey get hurt at the end of the year?
Did he? Yeah. How many games did he miss?
Less than 5.
It was either 2 or 3.
Yeah.
It was either 2 or 3.
Oh, I forgot that. Was it like end of the season heading into the playoffs?
Yeah.
Does that even count for whatever? It doesn't really matter that much.
But again, I definitely think it's 1A, 1B. I think you can literally have an argument on both sides. But guys, I'm gonna go real, and I think I'm gonna lean more on the Lamar Jackson side because of the quarterback.
Yeah.
The way the quarterbacks are this year. Like, tight ends, yeah, you could be getting that 17 points, and the other quarterback or the other tight ends are just absolutely destroying you. But I don't know. I think Lamar Jackson is separating quite heavily from the fantasy side. The running ability, nobody can stop him. He's doing it on 10 carries. Even Josh Allen's arm isn't going to be able to keep up with that, even when he throws for 400 yards. So,
Kelsey missed 1 game last year, week 15.
Oh, I thought it was 2 as well.
Yeah, I thought it was
less
2 or
than
3.
5, yeah.
I mean, you were technically right, Goz. It is less than 5. Taking the safe bet.
That's the ultimate radio cover. That's what I call it. Just say a number less than, yeah. You don't have to give away my secrets. Answer the question about Mirage.
Mirage. You know why? Because I have Lamar Jackson in the Godzilla League. I'm about to be 0-3.
Oh, no.
So we're not the LA Angels with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. I don't care.
I'm about to be 3-0 without scoring 100 points in the Dynasty League yet this season.
Disgusting. I do understand. I think it's a very great point with how far the gap right now between quarterbacks is. I do think Josh Allen is neck and neck.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to the Kelsey and Andrews conversation, Josh Allen's been just as consistent and great this year. Hasn't put up that massive 40-plus point week like Lamar has done. I more so, I think when I lean towards fantasy MVP, I know last year it was pretty much unanimous, Jonathan Taylor or Cooper Kupp. And I look for the Cooper Kupp type player because I look at the MVP as a guy who's completely overachieved, like a guy that you got from round 3 and above who has now leapfrogged into the top of his position. And he took, a little bit of a step back this past week, injured his ankle. Hopefully he's okay. But I look for more of that kind of player. Like prior to this week, I would have said Amon-Ra St. Brown is the fantasy MVP.
I can get on board with that.
It's kind of a league winner kind of guy. Like you went into the year thinking he was your wide receiver 2, and now he's wide receiver 1 of the entire league. That's the kind of player that I'm looking for. So I'm going to say Mirage again because I'm bitter, even though Lamar has literally been my only shining spot on that team.
All right, guys, we got a decision to make here. Now, coming up on our later week's episode, we got waiver wire moves a little later in the week. We got our week 3 breakouts. Start, sit, or cut. Do we want to do it now, or do we want to save it for later in the week? Chet Davis, I'll let you make the call here.
Can I do a Mirage first?
Yes.
Let's go. Boom. Real or Mirage?
I'm going Mirage because you said Mirage.
Okay. Real or Mirage? RB running back injuries are the single most important mid-season factor in fantasy football.
Real.
Go ahead with your real, Kyle, while I think and let it marinate in my brain.
I think I'm going real just because, like, with this year, you're probably really struggling to find depth. And if you're smart, not like me, and didn't get handcuffs, you're in trouble. If you don't have, for God's sake, Zeke was like a top 5 pick, and he's been terrible. And like, unless you went onto the waiver wires and grabbed somebody, and I can't even think of anybody right now that's not named Wilson. Who are you going after? Who's out there to grab that's going to put you up some consistent points that's available? So I'm going to go real because if you don't have any of those bench players, you're in trouble.
Oh man, I'm still thinking about it. I get your point too.
I'll go and let it marinate longer. I say real, because not only can it derail a season, it could be the missing piece to a lineup. Right now, we're seeing DeAndre Swift. Early reports could miss 2 weeks. You have Jamal Williams on your bench. Maybe you rolled the dice and put him in your flex this past week, and you struck gold. Now you have a solid running back option, and we're talking. One of the hot strategies right now is 0 RB. This is how you hit. Alexander Madison might be a starter next week. When he starts, 20-point average as the starter in Minnesota. So you get these injuries, and that is where it opens up the floodgates for your team. If Montgomery misses, how valuable is Khalil Herbert now, who somehow in 3/4 of a game put up more points than David Montgomery has in his entire fantasy career? So those are the kind of players that go from being handcuffs to bench players to waiver wire ads who now become a valuable asset on your team.
And guys, before you go, I just quickly checked the waiver wire. The top performing running back available in my league is Samaje Perine, who put up 13 points because he got a receiving touchdown. He carried the ball 2 times. Right. Then it's followed by Justice Hill and Zach Moss, both exactly the same. And Zach Moss had a 40-yard run, which is why he put up 5.7 points. So good luck.
But even in recent years, we've seen it every year. There's a handful of the big names, whether it was CMC last year and Chuba Hubbard becomes a thing. Mike Davis the year before that, I believe, when CMC went down, became somewhat of a league winner. So when guys go down, it just opens up the doors for somebody else to steal the show.
This is why my brain works differently, because even how you set up the question was perfectly set up. But my mind jumped to, if I lose my first round pick, what's my replacement? So it's an 11th rounder, because it's kind of what you said. Like you said, a running back getting injured can derail a season and end it. So look, in years past, if you had the number 1 pick and had David Johnson or Christian McCaffrey, I have Jonathan Taylor now, and God forbid he gets hurt because my teams are doing okay with Jonathan. That's it. Like the quality of running backs, and why it goes back to our mock draft back in August of, if you lose one of these guys, and Ray made a great point, like you can handcuff them, and that's smart people are able to do that. But it's still about production. We mentioned Madison, like he's a fantastic running back, probably should be on the Niners or another team, but at this point, I don't know what more the guy's got to do. But yeah, it's real. And it's one of the most frustrating parts about fantasy football, because you can get it right. Like your guy can kill it for a month. Injuries is a part of this whole thing. It's real. You can do everything you want to try to find that production. There's a reason one guy's on the bench and one guy's a first round draft pick in fantasy. It's because of how good he is. So yeah, real.
You said that perfectly, Goz, because I think I already said real, because I think it creates the biggest swing. You mentioned Jonathan Taylor. Didn't happen last year. But let's just imagine that Jonathan Taylor gets hurt midseason after being the clear-cut RB1. If someone else has Nyheim Hines, that pendulum swing in points can change an entire outlook for a fantasy football league. You could go from the favorite to now this guy gets Nyheim Hines, maybe even getting half of Jonathan Taylor's production, and that makes him a contender. So yeah, I think you can never predict which ones are going to drop. Some are a little bit more injury prone than others, but we're guaranteed we're not done. Someone else is going to go down in the next month or two that is going to change the outlook of a season for teams for the better or for the worse.
I like it, guys. We've gone 45 minutes. We thought we were going to go shorter on this one. We did not. How about we do this? Start, sit, cut, waiver wire, week 3 breakouts for our next episode. If you're listening on our audio side, all you have to do is let this audio play through, and you're going to go right into it, and you'll hear a nice John Stone Supply and Troy read off the top. Make sure to give love to those guys. Double doses of this fall We Talk Fantasy, guys. We will talk again soon.